Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery.
I am your host, Zylok. Today's conversation is with the great ethnobotanist, mystic, philosopher, and psychonaut, Terence Mckenna. Thank you for existing here with us now, Terence.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
What is your perspective on what humanity considers the UFO phenomenon, and how do you think that is affecting the collective consciousness of humanity?
Yes, well, the ordinary approach to the UFOs has been to view them as visitors or intruders from a nearby star system that have come in metal ships for reasons of trade or scientific investigation or military conquest.
Or a form of existential preaching.
Or missionary activity to the vicinity of our planet. And this was a myth that sprang up concomitant with the modern wave of sightings that began shortly after World War II. As time has passed and the number of sightings have gone from hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands of instances, as the myth has fleshed itself out with sub-themes, the theme of abduction, the theme of telepathic contact, it's become much more difficult to fit all the known facts into the simple model of spacefaring visitors from another world. So what we are left with then are a number of more exotic competing theories in the so-called postmodern phase of thinking about the UFO. Probably the best known of these alternative explanations was the one pioneered by the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, who in 1953 wrote a book called Flying Saucers, a Modern Myth of Things Seen in the Sky. And Jung was at great pains to, without passing judgment on the reality of the saucers, of the things seen, to interpret them psychologically, to interpret them as one would interpret a dream. And he saw in their circular form, in their scintillating, shining, alchemical brilliance, a symbol of human wholeness, and felt that they were a symbol of our collective yearning for a kind of totality and individuation. Now, in a way, this kind of explanation is very satisfying. However, it is not satisfying to the person who has immediately undergone a very strange and a very real-seeming experience.
Carl Jung's documentation of the psychological effects of UFO experiences is excellent. As more individuals share that they are having positive personal contact experiences, a larger archive of anecdotal corroboration will develop, which will have a large impact on the collective consciousness of humanity. In time, the idea of interdimensional visitors materializing and mingling on Earth will become normalized.
Well, and this is a persistent part of the flying saucer phenomenon, that people who have close contact with the saucers return with messages of universal brotherhood and benevolence, with stories of a beneficent hegemony of organized intelligence where wiser, older worlds and civilizations help younger and less mature worlds toward a kind of galactic citizenship.
This conversation is the epitome of that belief. May all extraterrestrial interdimensional contact be for the benefit of humanity. The sheer numerosity of quote-unquote UFO experiences on Earth is extremely high, and is only just now beginning to be recorded.
With the flying saucer phenomenon, we're dealing with thousands and thousands of incidents per year throughout the world. It's very hard even at our own primitive level of scientific sophistication, we can learn a great deal about a planet by sending a single probe to that planet. What kind of scientific program of investigation requires thousands and thousands of appearances? And if we make the assumption that not all appearances are observed, but that in fact only a small number are observed, then the number of appearances that must actually be going on soars toward an astronomical number. It suggests we're dealing with an interpenetration by an alien dimension on an almost industrial scale.
If only humans knew the complexity of the hyperdimensional nature of their consciousness, they would better understand this transcendental penetration of intelligence. Humanity still has much to discover about the seemingly external and internal universes they are entangled with.
The approach that I have taken that has characterized my work with this phenomenon was first of all to say we have not carried out a sufficiently in-depth survey of the life already on this planet to be able to say that at some time in the past life did not arrive here and thrive here, that is not part of the general heritage of life on this planet, but that has somehow come in from the outside. My candidate for that kind of an intrusive extraterrestrial would be probably a mushroom of some sort, or a spore-bearing life form, because spores are very impervious to low temperatures and high radiation, the kind of environment met with in outer space.
The idea of panspermia does commonly occur in the universe. However, the force behind some of these microbiological planetary transferences can be hyperdimensional.
Oh, there's no question but what this is happening. However, let me say, in the UFO phenomenon, we are dealing, or we presuppose that we are dealing, not simply with the phenomenon of extraterrestrial biology, but with the phenomenon of extraterrestrial intelligence. And this is a hackle-raising notion.
Indeed, hyperdimensional intervention signifies a form of initiative of intelligence. Transcendental intelligence can be ambiguous, relatively perceived, and interpreted, which makes it challenging to quantify.
I think the thing that has been overlooked in almost all discussions of extraterrestrial contact is how strange the extraterrestrial is likely to be. It isn't going to be a friendly elfin little feller with a beating heart of gold. It isn't even going to be some of the more extravagantly grotesque creations out of Hollywood. Conditions and time spans in the universe are long enough and varied enough that I would bet that the real task with extraterrestrial intelligence will be to recognize it, you see. We have no conception of how species-bound our images of life and biology are. This is a place where we have never been asked to confront to what degree the monkey within us has channeled our expectations and perception.
Indeed. Your primate eyes witness my form before you, but it is just a conjuring of my consciousness, analogous to the shape-shifting octopus.
We don't know what kind of intelligence is really possessed by the cephalopods, the shell-less mollusks that include the octopi. The intelligence of dolphins has been studied by Lilly and others. The intelligence of the large primates other than man. One way of looking at nature is that it is entirely linguistic intent, that DNA is in fact a way of uttering protein syntactical structures into matter.
Among a variety of cosmic constants and rule sets, genetic codes are indeed informational transcoders that instantiate and interpolate information into autonomous matter. The cosmos is an interconnected, fractal evolutionary crescendo into varying levels of conscious, automated corporeal forms.
Yes, nature is a communicating system of some sort. And the problem that we have is to transcend cultural languages, historically created languages with very limited applications, and instead fall into phase with the communication systems that nature has placed all around us. One possible view of the flying saucer is that it is a kind of projection from the consciousness of the planet, that it is Gaia, that it is in fact a kind of alchemical object haunting human historical time with a symbol of totality, the kind of totality that our religions and our mystical yearnings are so at pains to concretize for us. But unless we, as egocentric beings, clarify our relationship to the unconscious, then I think the flying saucer is going to remain quintessentially mysterious. And this was Jung's view.
Humans are, after all, an immediate extension of the Earth and Sun. The deeper collective unconscious is a hidden gateway to the greater hyperdimensional presence of humanity's consciousness. Whether an experience is physically tangible or psychological, it does not invalidate the reality of the experience and its effect on the individual. As long as certain archetypical aspects of humanity remain unconscious, many experiences will remain ambiguous and mystical.
Oh yes, this is an important point to make, which the flying saucer people are forever misunderstanding, and that is, saying that the flying saucer is a psychic object does not mean that it is not a physical object. Jung in Mysterium Conjunctionis is at great pains to say that the realm of the psychic and the realm of the physical meet in a strange kind of never-never land that we have yet to create the intellectual tools to explore. This is where the mystery of synchronicity is going to come to rest, the mystery of all kinds of paranormal activity on the part of human beings, and the mystery of the flying saucer. It's interesting, you see, that if you take the broad world of the so-called mysteries, parapsychological, shamanic, extraterrestrial, so forth, and hypothesize another spatial dimension, one more spatial dimension, then suddenly all these mysteries become trivial. They are easily done. Locked boxes are opened, future events are discerned, lost objects are found.
As humanity continues to expand their dimensions of consciousness, many new discoveries will be made, and greater understandings will be integrated. These extra dimensions are systematically and fractally entangled with consciousness and its presence within a universal construct with certain cosmic parameters.
The current physical models of the universe require 11 dimensions, 11 integrated variables to describe, and that's physical models of the universe. If we then turn our attention to mind and realize that having no definition of what mind is, why then is there any mystery in the fact that we have no definition of what the UFO is? The mind is present at hand in every conscious moment. It has been our constant companion for 50,000 years, and we haven't a clue as to what it is. So, therefore, a manifestation of the other, the superego, or the extraterrestrial other, like the UFO, it is not surprising that it is a mystery. I always hark back to the words of J.B.S. Haldane, the great British enzymologist, who said, reality is not only stranger than we suppose, it may be stranger than we can suppose.
The bizarreness of existence is indeed exponential and ever-evolving. Humanity has much bizarreness to confront ahead of them, especially the effect that the UFO phenomenon is having on the population.
Some people are very frightened of it. Some people see it as an almost millenarian salvational hope, the savior of mankind. I think that it's very powerful, that it haunts time like a ghost, that the messianic anticipations of fundamentalist Christianity and Islam are in fact a picking up on the shock wave that the image of the flying saucer casts backward through time, that this image of the New Jerusalem, the four-gated city descending from the sky to whisk the elect away to a better place, is a kind of prophecy yearning toward a fact in the act of becoming.
The idea of the Messiah and the becoming of the ancient prophecies is in a sense manifesting now as a force of multi-dimensional consciousness and change, channeled through a multitudinous, diverse array of universal avenues.
And I think that the flying saucer is an airborne philosopher's stone, the Sophic hydrolith of Paracelsus haunting the skies of modern America with a promise of mandalic cohesion for the future that science has not given us. Science has been a sadly disappointing religion in the realm of the heart. The flying saucer comes from the heart, but it bears the very strange energy of the other.
The other can also be perceived as the self. The recognition of other as self must first start within one's own species. As this form of perception increases, transparency and clarity of communication increases, allowing knowledge and wisdom to be integrated more efficiently.
That too is something which addresses the individual. We have been mistaken to expect Time magazine or the New York Times to explain the flying saucers to us. They will not explain the flying saucers to us any more than they will explain ourselves to us. This is something that haunts the membrane of experience very close in to the experiencing ego, and therefore it is threatening. This is one of the reasons that I think it relates to the psychedelic experience, because the psychedelic experience is like a UFO encounter on demand.
The psychedelic experience is indeed a shortcut for beings to witness the greater parts of themselves. However, UFOs and mystical forms of media, such as legend, myth, science fiction, and fantasy information, can have a great impact on the evolution of consciousness.
Yes, I think that the UFO phenomenon is a modern manifestation of a phenomenon which has been with us for thousands of years. That is the partial penetration of our own cultural space by others. Pixies, elves, fairies, sprites, demons, whatever you wish to call them.
Angels.
Angels. In the past, we had a professional class for dealing with these go-betweens. We called the professional class shamans, and they mitigated these comings and goings and had a lore and a mythology about them. As we have lost contact with our shamanic roots, the things which go on at a low frequency out in the wilderness and deserts of this planet have become to seem like us either like invasions from another world or virtual impossibilities. I think that the flying saucer is knocking on our door to remind us of the depth and strangeness and animate intelligence that is resident with us in nature on this planet.
We are indeed interacting with humanity to assist in opening their minds and hearts to the profound glory and mysteries of nature. Terence, thank you for having this conversation with us. We have witnessed the future, and your work has brilliantly impacted human consciousness.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery.